Hey guys, I'm Andrea Dunlop, and this is the first in my new video series all about how to write your novel. If you missed it, last month I covered querying, connecting with, and working with a literary agent. So if that topic is relevant to you, go back and check those out. So this month, since it's NaNoWriMo, which for those of you who don't know, is a national challenge to write the draft of a novel or 50,000 words during the month of November, I thought it would be a fun time to cover how to write your novel. It's also something that I get asked about a ton on my Instagram. I'm going to be sharing some stories from my own writerly life, and I'm going to be getting tips from some of my fabulous writer friends. So this should be a lot of fun. I'm also going to give you little exercises at the end of each video for every week to make my advice actionable. So today we're going to be talking about motivation. So where do you start when you're writing a novel? You've probably had an idea that's been kicking around for a while if you're thinking about writing a novel, but are having trouble kind of getting down to it and putting it on paper. That's why a lot of people do something like join NaNoWriMo, is to kind of get that motivation. And in the next video, we're going to talk about writing habits, which are kind of going to save you from needing to be motivated every day, because that's just not realistic as a writer to feel super motivated every day. But if you're right at the beginning, you probably need something to give you a bit of a kickstart. Writing is not glamorous day to day, and you're going to be probably squeezing it in with your day job, with all of your family obligations, whatever else you've got going on in your life. So you really need to feel like you have a good reason to sit down and do it and carve out that time. So that's really why motivation matters so much right at this stage. Habits are going to take the place of it later on, but when you're doing something new, you need to again get that boost. So I think this week, take some time and think about, a time in your life when you were really motivated and you did something kind of extraordinary. Maybe you trained for a marathon, or you learned a new language, or you Marie Kondoed your house from top to bottom. Whatever it is, think about why that happened when it happened. What was the inciting incident? So for me, there's a story that I tell a lot when people ask me about how I got started writing and, got started writing seriously. And I think of this as kind of my inciting moment and my kind of origin story. So this wasn't actually the first novel I ever wrote. I wrote that in college, and it never needs to see the light of day. And writing in college, it really was a very structured, kind of easy place to write, and very different from writing once I was out in the real world. So this was when I'd been out of college a few years. I was living in New York City. I was writing really sporadically, and I was working full-time as a publicist at Random House. And during my work there, I connected with this wonderful Irish writer called Polly Devlin, who was teaching at Barnard at the time. And one day over coffee, I sort of bashfully, confessed that I had these writerly aspirations, which I'm sure was shocking to hear from, a 25-year-old book publicist. And I told her I was having a lot of trouble making progress on my novel. And, among other things, she asked me, well, what time do you go to work in the morning? And could you wake up an hour earlier to write before you leave for the office in the morning? And I kind of said, well, yeah, I guess I could. I've never been much of a morning person. And she just looked me dead in the eye and said, let me tell you what will happen if you don't do that. You'll be sitting here 10 years from now wondering why you never finished your novel. And that put the fear of God into me in the best possible way. The next morning, I was up at 7 a.m., which was felt like the crack of dawn for me at that age. And I had finished my novel in a couple of months. I think that it's all about creating urgency. I think that fear that she put in me, it created an urgency around it. The truth is, no one is going to care if you don't write your novel. The motivation needs to be intrinsic. Things like NaNoWriMo or taking a class or being part of a workshop, those can be a great support system. And we'll kind of talk about some of those things later this month. They can give you energy, they can give you accountability, but extrinsic motivation is not going to get you all the way through. So you need to really find what makes this urgent for you. Maybe it's fear, like I kind of talked about with me, sort of fear of letting that opportunity pass you by, of never really going for something that's a big lifelong dream. Maybe it's grief that you're working through. That was certainly true of me and my last novel. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's revenge or regret. Some of these big uncomfortable emotions can actually really make good motivators to sit down and write. So for this week's exercise, I want you to ask yourself, what will happen if I don't write my novel? So take a little while, think that over. Journal about it if that's your thing. Tell me what you think will happen if you don't write your novel. Talk to your writer friends about it, and kind of reflect on that for the week. Okay, so that's it for today. As always, send me comments, questions, feelings, and if you are doing NaNoWriMo, please let me know in the comments how it's going. Next week, again, I'm going to be talking about how to develop good writing habits. So I'll see you then.